She had no power. She had no voice in society. And yet, her prayer reached heaven and echoed through history. The story of Hannah is one of profound pain, unwavering faith, patient waiting, and complete surrender. It's a powerful reminder that God hears the cries of a broken heart and can transform our deepest sorrow into a glorious purpose. Today, we're going to dive into the incredible story of Hannah, how one heartfelt prayer not only changed her life but also shaped the future of an entire nation. Let's travel back in time to ancient Israel. Here we meet Hannah, married to a man named Elkanah, who loved her deeply. In her culture, this was more than just a personal sadness. It was a source of deep shame and social disgrace. A woman's value was often measured by her ability to bear sons, and Hannah felt this weight every single day. To make her suffering even more unbearable, Elkanah had another wife, Peninnah, who had children. Peninnah didn't just have children, she used them as a weapon against Hannah. The Bible tells us that Peninnah would provoke Hannah relentlessly, tormenting her year after year because the Lord had closed her womb. Imagine the constant taunting, the smug looks, the whispers that followed Hannah everywhere. Her home, which should have been a place of refuge, became a source of constant pain. Day after day, Hannah wept. Her heart was so heavy with grief that she often couldn't even eat. But in the midst of this overwhelming sorrow, she did something remarkable. She didn't grow bitter or turn her back on God. Instead, she turned toward Him, bringing her broken heart directly to the only one who could truly understand her pain. Each year, Elkanah's family would travel to Shiloh, where the house of the Lord was located, to worship and offer sacrifices. It was at the temple, surrounded by families celebrating with their children, that her own emptiness felt most acute. One year, the pain became too much to bear. After a meal where Peninnah had likely been at her worst, Hannah rose with a heavy heart and went to the temple to pray. She was in such deep anguish, weeping bitterly as she poured out her soul to God. Her prayer wasn't loud or performative. It was a silent, desperate conversation between her and her Creator. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. She was so lost in her grief and her appeal to God that she was completely unaware of her surroundings. In that moment, she made a solemn vow. She promised, God, Lord Almighty, if you will only look on your servant's misery and remember me, and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life. The high priest, Eli, was sitting nearby and saw her lips moving without a sound. He thought she was drunk and rebuked her. But Hannah, with dignity and sorrow, explained, Not so, my lord. I am a woman who is deeply troubled. I have not been drinking wine or beer. I was pouring out my soul to the Lord. Eli, realizing his mistake, was moved by her sincerity. He replied, Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you have asked of him. After this encounter, something shifted in Hannah. She left the temple, her face no longer downcast. She went back and ate, her heart filled with a newfound peace that came not because her circumstances had changed, but because she had laid her burden down before God and trusted Him with the outcome. The Bible simply and beautifully states, and the Lord remembered her. God heard Hannah's silent, desperate prayer. In due time, she conceived and gave birth to a son. Her sorrow was turned into unimaginable joy. The tears of grief were replaced with tears of gratitude. She named him Samuel, which means asked of God, because, as she said, I asked the Lord for him. The name itself was a constant reminder of God's faithfulness. The child she held in her arms was the living, breathing answer to the prayer she had poured out in her deepest distress. Can you imagine the joy that flooded her heart? The years of shame and mockery melted away, replaced by the profound happiness of a mother holding her child. But even in her joy, Hannah did not forget the promise she had made in her pain. Her vow was a serious commitment, born from a heart of true faith. When Samuel was weaned, which in that culture could be around the age of 3 or 4, Hannah prepared to fulfill her vow. This is perhaps the most powerful part of her story. She journeyed back to the house of the Lord in Shiloh, this time not with a heavy heart, but with a heart full of praise and a precious child by her side. She brought Samuel to Eli the priest and said, "For this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him. So now I give him to the Lord. For his whole life he will be given over to the Lord." She gave up the very son she had longed for, the child who had taken away her shame and filled her life with joy. This was the ultimate sacrifice of faith. She wasn't just giving up a child, she was entrusting her most treasured gift back to the giver. Her act wasn't one of obligation, but one of profound trust and worship. Immediately after leaving her son, Hannah prayed again. But this time, it wasn't a silent, sorrowful prayer. It was a beautiful song of praise and victory. She celebrated God's power. She declared that God is the one who raises the humble and brings down the proud. Her sacrifice, an act of radical obedience, would go on to shape the future of her people. Her son, Samuel, would grow up in the temple and become one of Israel's greatest prophets, priests, and judges, the man who would anoint the first 2 kings of Israel, Saul and David. And God did not overlook Hannah's incredible faith. The story doesn't end with her sacrifice. It continues with God's overwhelming blessing. After giving her firstborn son to the Lord, God honored Hannah's faithfulness in a way she probably never expected. The Bible tells us that the Lord was gracious to her, and she went on to have 3 more sons and 2 daughters. Her act of surrender didn't lead to emptiness. It unlocked an overflow of abundance. The woman who was once shamed for being barren became the joyful mother of 6 children. What began in deep sorrow and bitter tears ended in overflowing blessing and songs of praise. Hannah's story is a beautiful illustration that when we give our best to God, He can give us back more than we could ever ask or imagine. Her obedience was a seed that blossomed into a garden of blessings, not just for her, but for generations to come. So, what is the message of Hannah for us today? Her story teaches us so many things. First, it shows that God hears sincere, heartfelt prayer. He is not distant or indifferent to our pain. He sees our silent tears, He hears our whispered pleas, and He remembers His children. Second, Hannah's story shows that faith doesn't always remove our suffering immediately, but it gives us the strength to endure it and transforms it into something meaningful. Her faith gave her peace long before her prayer was answered. It's a testament to the fact that our perspective changes when we place our trust in God. Even when our circumstances don't, she teaches us to pour out our souls to God honestly, bringing Him our pain, our desires, and our promises. Her life is a powerful example of how surrendering our deepest desires to God can lead to His greatest purposes. In the end, Hannah's story is a timeless reminder that some of the quietest, most humble prayers can be the ones that change history. She was an ordinary woman with an extraordinary faith. When we feel powerless, unseen, or overwhelmed by our circumstances, we can look to Hannah. When we choose to surrender our deepest pain and our most cherished desires to God, He can take our broken pieces and create a masterpiece of purpose that goes far beyond our wildest imagination. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Hannah's incredible story. If her faith has inspired you, please like this video and subscribe for more content that explores the power of faith.